Welcome back to Crime Chronicles. Early in June of 2024, you probably hadn't heard of Jay Slater. He was a teenager on a first holiday without his parents in Tenerife, like many other British teens every summer. It's rare, but sometimes accidents happen while abroad, and occasionally they become tragedies. But few ever hear about them. This isn't the case for Jay Slater, whose family have been thrust into the national spotlight during a month-long search that has captivated millions around the world on social media. The facts in Jay's case seem relatively simple. He got lost in treacherous terrain and fell to his death. His family hoped the viral frenzy would end when his body was found, but it did not. New information linked to this case is raising more and more questions. Stay tuned as we look at the shady people linked to Jay's final hours, as well as his own violent criminal past. Things went wrong for Jay in the early hours of the 17th of June. He decided to get into a car with two men in Playa de las Americas, the heart of the Spanish islands nightlife. Those men drove the apprentice bricklayer north to an Airbnb in the village of Masca, a tiny settlement surrounded by mountains and ravines. The man who rented the Airbnb was convicted of running a heroin and crack cocaine operation in Cardiff almost a decade ago. His name is Ayub Kasim, and he was one of the last people to see the 19-year-old before his disappearance in Tenerife. An immediate focus of the investigation became an image Jay posted on Snapchat, cigarette in hand, tagged at the door of the apartment at 7:30 a.m. It showed that he had stayed at Kasim's Airbnb. Then two phone calls emerged. His friend Lucy Law received one at around 8:30 a.m. Jay told her he was lost, had 1% battery on his phone, and needed water. In a video call to fellow friend Brad Hargreaves, Jay was walking on rough, stony ground, saying he was trekking 11 hours home after missing a bus. How did he end up in the mountains? Investigators have seemingly been unable to answer this. Thanks to Jay's phone pinging a mast at 8:50 a.m., Spanish police had a location to work off: the rural Deteno Park. Search teams sprang into action on difficult terrain. It's an area of thick vegetation, steep ravines, and cliff faces. The area can be very hot during the day, with temperatures topping 30 degrees centigrade. There can also be sudden drops in both temperature and visibility as mist rolls in from the sea. Specialist sniffer dog teams from Madrid, helicopter crews, and drones scoured the rough terrain. And then, on July 15th, human remains were found in the ravine close to the last phone mast to ping Jay's phone. Although heavily decomposed, the initial autopsy found his injuries were consistent with a fall onto rocky ground from height. Days of searches of this area had found nothing. Did they unwittingly walk past him first time around? What few knew until now was that after the police formally called off the search 2 weeks after Jay disappeared, it actually continued. It appears the Spanish police may have hoped that announcing they had stopped searching would calm some of the attention around the case. It turns out mountaineers with machetes had been abseiling into inaccessible areas and hacking away at vegetation, carrying out discreet searches to deter curious onlookers. While searches were ongoing, on TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook, fantastical tales of Moroccan mafia groups or international drug smuggling rings were woven in with information from Jay's past. Jay's mum Debbie was hit with messages from people claiming they had kidnapped her son. If an inquest is opened in the UK, it could see witnesses, such as the men who were in the Airbnb with Jay, called to give evidence and answer questions. This is where the spotlight might fall once again on Mr. Kasim, reportedly known to some people as Whispers because of his soft voice. Immediately following Jay's disappearance, he told the media, "He came to my Airbnb alive, and he left my Airbnb alive." Spanish police interviewed Mr. Kasim and an unnamed friend he was traveling with, before determining them to be irrelevant to the investigation. Mr. Kasim was part of a London-based gang selling drugs in Cardiff from a terraced house in Kilcatton Street. In October of 2014, plainclothed police officers witnessed men dealing drugs nearby for 3 hours. That evening, the officers raided the house, having to smash their way in when the occupants attempted to barricade the front door with a large tyre. Mr. Kasim and 4 others were found in the house with drugs, cash, mobile phones, and digital scales. The ringleader was Mr. Kasim, and in 2015 he was jailed for 9 years over the conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Mr. Kasim, who is also known by the nickname Johnny Vegas, reportedly drove Mr. Slater to the remote Airbnb after they had met at the festival on the Sunday night. He told the media, "I let the geezer stay at mine because he has nowhere else to go. His friends had all left him. I know Jay, through friends. I'm not going to bring someone back to mine if I don't know them. I'm doing the geezer a favour, and now my face is all over the news. It's a bit mental. I haven't even done anything." According to some people, Jay Slater's own violent past might be a reason for his disappearance and death. 2 years ago, Jay was given an 18-month community service order, alongside 25 days rehabilitation activities and 150 hours unpaid work, for his part in a violent gang attack that left a young man fighting for his life. Jay was part of an 8-person gang which attacked Tom Hilton with machetes, golf clubs, and an axe. Hilton described the gang as a pack of wolves, and although he ran for his life, the attack left him with head, leg, and shoulder injuries. Perhaps the most burning question that remains unanswered is what happened to the £12,000 Rolex watch Jay claimed to have stolen in a Snapchat message the night before his disappearance. Spanish police have declined to say whether the watch was found with Jay's body. So far, there has been no information about who the watch belonged to or if it had actually been stolen from someone. This watch, its theft, and possible retribution would be one of the strongest reasons to look at foul play in Jay Slater's death. This, linked with Jay's encounter with a well-known UK drug dealer on the night he disappeared, raise far more questions than answers in this case. We are hoping that the UK authorities open an inquest into Jay's death in the hope that all parties involved in his final hours can be formally questioned. This would help to create a more cohesive picture of what went on in the lead up to Jay's disappearance and subsequent death. For an event that on face value looks like a tragic accident, there seems to be a lot of shady people and dodgy goings-on connected to the death. More questions can and should be asked of the people connected with Jay's final days. Thank you for joining us today on Crime Chronicles. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel with your friends.